We said we're not doing a podcast. It's June. We started this in February, so I guess we're still doing it. Welcome to the show. I'm Mark Weber, joined here, as always, with Jarret Leese as the Empire State Building is lighting up behind him as we start the first episode of the June month of 2023. Jarret and I went to a Mets game last night. Jarret really enjoyed himself. My question for you is, how come you don't go to more games? You were really in your element at this game. You're talking to different fans. You're spewing hot takes. You're celebrating back in the New York groove. How come you don't go to more games? What's with you?
Well, first off, to comment on your comment of the Empire State Building being lit up, if it wasn't lit up, I would think that this would be DEFCON 10 because
but it's like sparkling. It's shining.
Is it ever not lit up? I feel like
you set the lights up, Jarret. That's what it is.
I have the button right over here. I just tap the button. I change the colors.
It's the button on the Howie Rose bobblehead. That's what it really does.
Yes, exactly. Yes. No. So we went to the game last night. It was a good time. And as you know, you're a Yankee fan, and we're sitting in a section where a bunch of other Met fans, where I converse with, and have a good time. And us Met fans, we're all very similar. I will say, Met fans, we know how to build character because God knows we always go through a lot each and every season. So there's always similarities when we can converse amongst the problems that always occur on an annual basis with the New York Mets.
Some people go to church. Some people go to synagogue. Jarret goes to Citi Field. All right, now speaking of baseball, we have a potentially very exciting story on our hands in the Big Apple, where the Empire State Building is. Aaron Judge has 18 home runs. Pete Alonso has 20 home runs. Alonso leads the National League in home runs. Aaron Judge leads the American League. Judge on pace for 51 home runs because he's played in a lot less games this season. Pete Alonso on pace for 60. What is the better story? Now you have three options. Judge hitting 50 or 60. Again, first time to do it in back-to-back seasons since Sammy Sosa. Pete Alonso getting the 60 mark. Or the two of them to be in a home run race this season.
I think the better storyline would be Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge hits over 60 again, just think about that. He broke the American League home run record last year, a mark that hadn't been broken in over 60 years. And if he were to do that in back-to-back seasons, that would just be absolutely incredible. And Mark, you and I had this conversation yesterday. Who's the better player, Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani? Now, the answer is Shohei Ohtani, but Aaron Judge gives him a good run for his money. That's how great of a player Aaron Judge is. So to answer that question, I think the bigger storyline would be Aaron Judge going over 60 for a second straight year, because it hadn't been done since Roger Maris did it in 1961. To do it in 2 straight years would be simply phenomenal, in my opinion.
I'm going to go with the hot take, and it kind of goes against where our sports fandom lies. And I'm going to say Pete Alonso hitting 60 would actually be the bigger story, because with Aaron Judge, you have a lot of people thinking, okay, he's doing it again. He does this every year, it seems. And that's for the people that aren't really big sports fans. And we try to cater to those people who like sports, but maybe not love sports the way we do. And Pete Alonso already has the Mets record for 53 home runs in his rookie season. And I think for him to hit 60 in the National League would be a humongous deal. And it'd be something that a lot of people could get behind. Now, would I love an Alonso Judge home run race? Of course. I'm a New Yorker. It's obvious. It would be the story of the summer. Who's the better player, Judge or Alonso? It would be great. But I do think since Judge did it last year, there may be some people that could be kind of tired of it. And Alonso going for 60 would be a really cool story. And depending on the way the Mets season goes with the division, catching up with the Braves, the wild card, could be the highlight of the season.
For as great as Pete Alonso is, I don't think he's going to get to 60. because there's always a stretch during the season where Pete goes.
But Pete wants this so badly. And I know you have a habit of saying that guys are mentally in it when I personally think it's their job and they're going to go hard every single day because they're professional athletes for a reason. But Pete was definitely envious of the shine that Judge has had. Pete used to look at the All-Star game and say, I want to be with those guys. I want to be the big star that is attracting a lot of fans. And I really do believe that just based on what we've heard from Pete when it comes to interviews and maybe a little susceptible narcissism, that he'll do whatever it takes to get 60 home runs this season. I could have told you that at the beginning of the season as well.
Well, look, he did break the rookie home run record by Aaron Judge when Pete Alonso was a rookie in 2019. But following Pete Alonso's career, he always has that 4 to 5 week period where he kind of goes through a little bit of a drought in terms of hitting home runs, where he'll go 4 or 5 weeks where he may just hit 2 or 3. He does that sometimes, which, look, I still think Pete Alonso is going to end up getting his 45 to 50, but if we're talking 60, he can't go on one of those stretches of a month where he barely hits 5 home runs. So, and that's where I just think Aaron.
But he's already hit 53. Why not 60? He's been in the major leagues longer than the time he hit 53.
But over the past few years of his career, he's had those stretches where he goes quiet with the long ball. He's very hot and cold with home runs. He'll have a stretch of 10 games where he'll hit 6 home runs. And then he'll have a stretch of 30 to 35 games where he may hit 4 to 5. Again, that is good enough for Pete Alonso to hit 45 to 50, but 60 is a whole nother barometer. We've seen guys be able to hit 45 to 50 home runs routinely throughout Major League history, but 60, it's just a whole nother animal. And I think the fact that Aaron Judge, he's also just a better hitter than Pete Alonso. He just hits for a better average. I think Aaron Judge, in spite of the fact that he was on the IL for a week, I think Aaron Judge is going to surpass Pete Alonso at some point, and I think Aaron Judge is going to lead the major leagues again in home runs. The question, does he get to 60 or not, remains to be seen. But I think it'd be the better storyline for him to get to 60 in back-to-back years, because it just never happens. So I'll go with Aaron Judge being the bigger story.
No players in Major League Baseball have hit 60 home runs in back-to-back seasons since 1998 and 1999. McGuire and Sosa both did it that year. And surprisingly, no one has hit 50 home runs in back-to-back seasons since Sammy Sosa did it in 2000 and 2001. Now, moving on from baseball to the gridiron, well, kind of the gridiron. Aaron Rodgers has had himself a time since joining the New York Jets. In just the past week alone, Jarret, let me tell you where he's been. He's been caught shopping at Rag & Bone, John Varvatos. He's been dabbling in a little Taylor Swift concerts with Miles Teller at MetLife Stadium, both Saturday and Sunday. And then on Wednesday, he was at Wicked with his teammates. If you're going to rank the 3 things, shopping at the hot spots like John Varvatos and Rag & Bone, Taylor Swift concert with Miles Teller 2 nights in a row at MetLife Stadium, and going to see Wicked with his teammates, where do you rank them on the with it scale?
Number 1 is going to see Wicked, 100%. When it comes to seeing Taylor Swift, everyone could have just gone on TikTok and seen the whole concert on their TikTok feed. So sure, it would have been lovely to be at the Eras tour for Taylor Swift, but everyone got to see it on their phones. Whereas going to see a Broadway show is always something special, especially in New York. And I saw Wicked way, way back when. It's got to be at least 10 years ago. So I would always love to go see another Broadway show in the near future.
What's the last Broadway show you saw?
Oh, it's got to be probably Jersey Boys. Probably at least, it's got to be 15 years. It's been a long time.
We got to go to a show together if that's the case. There's been so much that's happened since. Hamilton, Book of Mormon.
Foreman, Dear
You're
Evan
really missing
Hansen,
out on a lot, Jared. Dear Evan Hansen.
a lot.
I'm not even a Broadway guy, and I've seen all these shows. I've seen Wicked twice.
Yeah. So after we go to our next Met game together or a Yankee game, we'll get tickets to go see a show of your choice because you're more in tune of which shows
I'm
are
barely in tune. I just
this
see it
is
following, and I go occasionally. I mean, I go to shows I really want to see. Wicked, I wanted to see because my
Funny
wife
Girl
never
is a good
saw it
one.
and loves the music. Book of Mormon, South Park people. I've seen it twice. It's the best show I've ever seen on Broadway. And Dear Evan Hansen, you hear the soundtrack once, you're hooked. You want to see it live. Hamilton, kind of a big thing. But I'm really surprised you didn't see Hamilton, especially during its peak era. That's very un-Jarret-like of you.
Things have to change. So I got to get more tickets to go see Broadway shows. And to answer on the third level, I mean, Aaron Rodgers going shopping, he'll have all the time in the world to get his clothes in New York City. But going to see a Broadway show, Wicked, with his teammates, because that's something that he always said he wanted to do, especially with his new teammate, CJ Uzama. So look, Aaron Rodgers,
DJ,
he's
who's
living
your
up.
mama?
Exactly. He's living it up in his time in New York right now. And you got to love the fact that he's enjoying every bit of being a New York Jet, and he's enjoying every aspect of living the limelight in New York. I actually didn't even know that he went shopping. Where'd you even find out that information where he went shopping at Rag & Bone and Jar Barbados? Was he spotted somewhere? Because I didn't even see that.
Where do you think I saw it? The New York Post.
Of
Where
course.
would anyone see that stuff? Think
Yeah.
I'm seeing him walking around Rag and Bone? I never go into Rag and Bone. You crazy?
I don't know. And usually I'm one who checks page 6 all the time, and I didn't even see that story. So you're more in depth when it comes to what Aaron Rodgers is doing outside of Jets OTAs right now. So look, Aaron Rodgers, give him credit. He's enjoying his time in New York City right now, and let's just hope the good times continue to roll with him come September when the Jets kick off their season against the Bills.
All right, moving on from the gridiron to a topic that is a whole out of left field. Two famous actors, probably two of the most famous actors ever, icons, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, are going to be bringing an infant into the world. Robert De Niro is going to turn 80 this August. He welcomed his 7th child in May, it was discovered. And Al Pacino, who is 83, is expecting a child. The two of them starred together in The Irishman, Heat, and Godfather 2. Who are you more worried about to have children at this age, Robert De Niro or Al Pacino?
Probably Robert De Niro at this point. I mean, the fact that, look, Al Pacino's only having his 4th versus Robert De Niro having his 7th. And by the way, I'm convinced that this was like an inside joke between the two of them. Like, oh, let's just decide to have kids at the age of 80 and above and see who ends up living longer. But I'd probably be a little more concerned about Robert De Niro. He also looks a little bit older, in my opinion, than Al Pacino. And but you give him credit. You give them both credit. I guess they still got the swimmers going. So all the power to them. If you and I can be doing the things that those two men are doing at the age of 80 and above, then people should just tip our caps to us, because at that point, just give them credit. Now, they probably won't even be around to see their kids start middle school.
Elementary school.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in terms of being selfish, that's probably one of the most selfish things you could do, because you're probably going to croak by the time you have a kid and they're 10,
Let's not
11.
talk about De Niro and Al Pacino in that way. What is the appropriate age for their children to change their diapers? I'm talking about De Niro and Pacino, not junior, senior.
Oh, I mean, they don't have to do anything themselves. The women in the relationship, they'll be doing it amongst themselves, because at this point, I think
that's kind of rough. You give birth to a child and then you have to change Pacino or De Niro's diapers. That's kind of rough. That's a rough go at it. I hope there's a nanny or someone, but I hope the kid does help out, because that may be like you said, the quality time that they'll be able to spend with them.
Well, I mean, Robert De Niro, he's got kids that are in their 50s, so maybe those kids will be helping change their step siblings' diapers, because it'll definitely be interesting times ahead for Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. But give him credit, I guess. Give him credit.
All right. Now, we mentioned when we first did our initial episode that we would talk about sports media. I don't think we talked about sports media once on this podcast. We've done probably over a dozen episodes at this point around that. ShannonSharpe is leaving Fox Sports' Undisputed with SkipBayless. Who should replace ShannonSharpe to pair up with SkipBayless and Undisputed? Who would be your most ideal candidate, and who would be your most practical candidate where, hey, this could actually work?
At this point, why not a reunion between Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith? Because as much as you and I both love Stephen A., Mark, he's definitely changed a bit over the years when we would see some of the most incredible videos amongst Stephen A. Smith. One that we were watching at the Met game last night where he was just bagging Jamarcus Russell. So I feel like at this point also, who else would work with Skip Bayless besides Stephen A. Smith? I feel like no one wants to even be bothered with the crap that Skip Bayless spews on a daily basis. So get Stephen A. and Skip Bayless back together. Let's get a reunion going amongst them. Who would you like to see with Skip, if anybody?
So Stephen A. is obviously the top choice. It's not going to happen given their long-term contracts with ESPN and Fox. It would be a dream case scenario between the two of them, because it does feel like Stephen A. has lost a little bit of his fire punch now that he doesn't have his great jousting partner. It's Mayweather coming to a fight. He doesn't have Pacquiao. It just doesn't really make sense. Magic without facing Bird. You need that person to motivate you. And I know that Stephen A. kind of has his rotating people that come on the show. Michael Irvin's been there a couple of times. JJ Redick, Chris Mad Dog Russo. But the guy that I would love to see actually paired up with Skip Bayless, and not just trying to play the counterpart to what you said before, I would love to see JJ Redick go up against Skip Bayless.
Yeah.
Because JJ Redick is not afraid of Stephen A. Smith. JJ Redick pretty much goes after him every time he's on, and JJ Redick kind of has gotten a few warnings from Stephen A. It's kind of seemed on the air, and it would be really fun to see Skip Bayless go on an anti-LeBron rant and have someone like JJ Redick really go deep into the numbers and to the analytics, proving him wrong.
Or what about Chris Mad Dog Russo? He's been on First Take over the past several months, and he always spews some interesting things. It was kind of funny. He said Jaylen Brown wasn't a top 25 player in the NBA, and he came up with this whole list, and JJ Redick was kind of going back and forth with him. So, I mean, I could see JJ Redick doing it, but maybe Chris Mad Dog Russo. I would be entertained by having Skip Bayless talk about guys like Joe DiMaggio, Lou Gehrig, having no interest in it, and Mad Dog Russo just going absolutely berserk over anything that Skip Bayless would say. So maybe
Yeah,
Chris,
but would the chemistry be there? Because the chemistry with Mad Dog Russo and Stephen A. is definitely there, because they had that Sirius radio relationship. Stephen A. was on Mad Dog's channel back in the day, especially I think around the time his ESPN contract ended the first time around. So they have that chemistry. So that was one of those things where you knew going into it was going to work out. I thought about Mad Dog, but I really can't see him doing a show with Skip Bayless. It would just be, there would be no conversation. It's not what we have. There wouldn't be a converse flow. There just wouldn't be that juice. It would be a little dry in that sense.
Or Bill Simmons.
Just give Bill Simmons would be amazing. But the problem is Bill Simmons is kind of, I like his podcast and everything like that, but he kind of is the Bill Simmons show in a lot of ways. Like in a lot of his shows, it's everyone kind of always agrees with him. He's had a few Succession takes and no one really calls him out. So I think he's got a great run being the head of the Ringer and having that Spotify contract. I can't see him. Maybe it'd be fun to have one guest run against SkipBayless for it to be a one-time thing, but for it to be a daily thing, that would be rough.
It would be interesting, or maybe even bring the Pope out of retirement. Mike Francesa. Why not? Get him out of the chair, bring out the Diet Coke, and anything where we could see Mike Francesa again. If that means having conversation with SkipBayless, so be it. So maybe bring Mike Francesa out of retirement. But look, we rattled off a bunch of names. Nobody wants to work with SkipBayless at this point.
It's going to be like Emmanuel Acho. That's who it's going to be. We all know it. Nick Wright would be cool, but no. I feel like he's kind of better off on his own.
Or Lil Wayne. Wasn't he on Undisputed at first? Just bring Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne was a humongous First Take fan. I think he was in the hospital and begged for First Take to be on. But again, that was during the peak days with Stephen A. and SkipBayless. So it was a different time. Different time back then, 10 years ago.
And I think he also didn't he sing the song for the introduction for Undisputed?
Yes.
So,
yes. No mercy. That was a terrible Lil Wayne impression. But yes, he I don't know if I have not watched the show in a very long time, but I know for a while he did do the Undisputed theme song. Yeah, Lil Wayne and SkipBayless, synonymous. Who would ever think? Why not?
Put it this way. SkipBayless, it's been a good career. I think it's time to hang it up.
Ooh. Adios. Ooh, that's my hands are hot from that hot take. That's a scorching hot take if I've ever heard one. Whew. All right. Sticking with media, Succession, one of our favorite shows, probably ever, ended this past Sunday. Very tragic, but it's good to see that it left on top. The show ended this past Sunday, and there's still a lot of people that are doing the whole no spoilers thing. They don't want you to talk about the series finale in front of them. At what point could you just spoil it for them? When do we get to that point? When is it just too bad?
Oh, well, talking to a person face to face, you shouldn't spoil it. But for example, Mark,
But when? Like a week? Say this upcoming weekend. You see someone, you talk about Succession, and they go, no spoilers. Like at that point, I don't know. I don't know what you think on that.
Well, when maybe in person, maybe a couple of days. But when it comes to looking on the phone, like you watched the finale live, I didn't. I actually watched it several hours later at 3 a.m, like a sick person, because I just had to watch it. But when it comes to checking your phone, if you don't want to be spoiled, just don't check your phone. It's not that hard. I didn't check my phone. I didn't check TikTok. And thankfully, I didn't, because I watched the finale. And when I went on TikTok the next day, every video, Succession. Well, if you don't want to be spoiled, well, keep scrolling. That's another thing also that terrifies me about TikTok. They know everything about me. So if I go out, everyone knows how I'm going out. It's through the talk. So, but look, when it comes to spoilers, you could be a spoiler after 3 to 4 days in person, but after that, it runs its course. It runs its course. You gotta watch a show if you're truly into it in a very small amount of time. 3 to 4 days, in my opinion.
3 to 4 days. That's long. I think that's long. I'm going to go 48 hours.
I would agree. Yeah.
If you don't like the show and you're not watching it within 48 hours of a series finale, too bad. And don't give the whole internet excuse. I know there's a lot of people that say, well, it's a different time. You have Twitter. You just pull up and you see the memes from Succession. You see the spoilers left and right. It's been like that forever. When Dallas was one of the biggest shows in the world, and everyone wanted to know who shot JR. There's a little throwback for you on that one. The next working day, every single person was talking about who shot JR. That's the way TV has been forever. 48 hours. That's the rule. 24 hours, next day. That's a little rough.
And were you
that may be just, keep it in a small group, find out who watched it, and then talk about it from there. But once you get the 48 hours, that's not a me problem. That's a you problem.
And were you happy with how it ended with Tom going out on top and not Kendall?
Great question. I know where you're going with this, but the audience does not. Tom was my favorite character in the show. I loved his insecurities. I loved the way they developed that character because when every little thing was going to go wrong for him, you really felt it because he wasn't like the Roys. If something bad happens to the Roys, they're fine. If something bad happens to Tom Wamsgans, he's not fine. He may have to go back to Minnesota. He may have to go work in a job that is a major step down for Tom. The Roy kids are fine. And yeah, he's married to Shiv, but come on, like they didn't sign a prenup. Are you kidding? I'm happy for him that it ended out okay for him and that he so-called won the show. But if anyone did win, it is him. But I kind of would have loved it for the whole message of the show if everyone lost. I think that would have been nice. I think if all the main characters lost, it would have been just a great show of showing how greed and can't always get what you want. I think that would have been a great message. And to have one character that clearly got everything he wanted just didn't sit right with me. But I am happy for Tom. And I thought the episode itself was phenomenal. Top 10 series finale of all time. And I think another question is, where does it rank among Mount Rushmore of best shows ever?
It's definitely up there. It 100% is up there. Now, to give my opinion on it when it comes to how it ended, Tom, you give him credit. He was scheming his way during Logan's funeral. He wasn't working. He was working back channels with Madsen to ultimately become the US CEO. Now, when it comes to Shiv, God almighty, that motherfucker can burn in hell. Shiv is the absolute worst. Now, as someone who is all about loyalty and committed to family, I hate Shiv Roy. Her face, despise her. Absolutely despise her. Throughout the entire series, did she even have one funny line? One funny moment? No. She's the worst.
How about when she fell down the stairs? That was a laughing at moment, not a laughing with, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah, funny to laugh at her, but oh God, I hate Shiv Roy. Absolutely despise her. The fact that she was going to be voting to keep the company in the Roy's name and support Kendall, and then just on a dime, change your tune and basically screw over your family. Shiv, adios.
You think she's worse than Betty Draper? Because if we're talking about iconic wives in a show that a lot of people hated, I would take Shiv over Betty Draper. I mean, Betty Draper was the worst. She was terrible to her kids, terrible to her husband. It's a complete narcissist. I mean, so was Shiv, but she didn't fake it. She knew it.
But she said she was going to vote no and vote no on the deal.
Yeah, but like that changed so quickly. She went back and forth. She didn't really have an opinion on that. She was going to switch either way. She was just going to do what was best for her.
And the message that Logan Roy pointed out right before he passed away to all of his kids, you're not serious people. And that's just the reality of all the Roy kids. And look, it's an all-time show. I'm going to miss it. The writing was absolutely brilliant.
Where does it rank among your Mount Rushmore favorite TV shows? Let's say HBO shows, if we're going to be very specific, because favorite TV shows could be a gigantic list that's hard to choose from.
Well, HBO shows for me, it's got to be number one, but that's a better question for you because you were the TV.
No, I want to hear your other three.
Well, HBO shows, I don't. Why? What are the other HBO shows that I watched?
All right, so I'll go with my list first, and maybe that'll ring you a bell.
You watch Sopranos. You watch all the other great ones. So give me your HBO Mount Rushmore.
Succession, Sopranos, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Entourage. Wait. 3 shows out of the 4 that you have seen and you have loved. I thought this would be an easy one for you.
I literally just blanked out. Of course, Curb and Entourage. Honestly, Succession is ahead of both. Curb for me is third. Entourage is second. Succession's number one. I mean, Succession is just an all-timer show. And
What's your fourth? Ballers with The Rock?
that's honestly like maybe the other HBO show that I only watched and I had to stop watching because after several episodes, it was just so damn bad. But, and leaving out an HBO show, as you would know, an all-timer show for me would be Suits. So that's another great one. What's another great one for you outside of HBO?
I'm going to go with Seinfeld. That's one of the top ones for me. Arrested Development, which is a Fox property. Those are probably my two shows that are up there that aren't in line with that. How I Met Your Mother, I love. That's another great one. But I think the top two outside of those HBO shows that I mentioned, it's easily Seinfeld and Arrested Development.
Unfortunately, I've only watched bits and pieces of Seinfeld episodes. Haven't watched the rest of
That's
Development.
a shame.
And 24 is another good one for me. See, like I'm not the TV expert or movie expert like you are. So I know you could have your own solo podcast on TV shows and movies for 2 hours, 3 times a week. So I know that's something you love, but we're gonna miss Succession, and we're gonna miss you and I are both gonna miss Logan Roy. I'm gonna miss Kendall because Kendall's my guy, the eldest boy, as are you. But Team Kendall for life, baby. Team Kendall for life.
All right. On that note, Team Kendall for Jarret. I am Team Tom, I guess. You are all very serious people. And thank you for watching and have a good night.